I was walking in the woods with my dog, and the minute I heard that sound, I knew what it was. And I'd never heard it before, but I knew it was a rattlesnake. It was like the sound of death. I went, oh my God. And if I had any doubts at all, 3 seconds later, my big red dog came dashing out of the bushes at full speed. So I absolutely knew there was a rattlesnake. And what were we going to do? We were about 3/4 of a mile up in the woods, and I needed to get down, get us both down. And I didn't know if she'd been bitten or not. She raced out of the bushes and then promptly dropped under an oak tree. So I sort of skidded around where I thought the sound had come from, and went over to check her, and she rolled over so I could rub her belly. But really, I was looking for puncture wounds. And I didn't find any, which was the good news, but that didn't mean anything really. I couldn't tell. I said, I know I'm not supposed to let the dog off leash, but she's a big dog, 60 pounds, and she loved to run, and she was like greased lightning just going over a hill. It was just a beautiful, beautiful sight. And I took that risk. We had walked there for 3 years without any mishap, even though at the bottom of the hill when you come into the preserve it said, be careful of rattlesnakes, which I thought was just very negative of them. They should just ignore that until that day. Okay, so we get down the hill, and we go to the car, and we're walking along. Actually, before we get to the car, there's a stream that she loves to stop at, have a little sitz bath, drink some Guardia filled water, which never seems to bother her. So then after she's nice and wet, and we get in the car, and I start the engine, and she sits down, and that concerned me because usually she just stands the whole way looking out the window, and I went, oh dear, maybe she did get bitten. What are we going to do? I go home, and I examine her again in the yard, and now she's completely soaking wet and matted with this. So I call the vet, and I say what's happened, and I say I don't know what to do. And they asking me, is there any swelling? I say, no, there's no swelling that I can find. But we'll bring her in, we'll take a look at her. And you see, I grew up in the city. Before I had a dog, I had goldfish. And when I first got my dog, everything she did, I thought was crazy. She chewed on furniture. She dug holes in the yard. I thought she was like hyperactive and she needed drugs, like a tranquilizer or something. I would call the vet like every 2 days. My dog is making a hole in the yard. What do I do? But I said, that's very normal behavior for a puppy, which she was about 6 or 8 months old in the beginning. Now she was about 3 or 4 when this happened. Oh my Lord. So then, okay, we go to the vets. And I say, well, do you have an antidote for a rattlesnake bite? Yes, we do have an antidote. I said, well, how much is it? I didn't ask how much it was. That wasn't the first question in my mind. It was my second question. My first question was, are there any side effects to an antidote? Thinking, what if it's worse than the possibility that she didn't? And she said, oh, no, there's no side effects except to your pocketbook. It's $400 for the shot. At which point I thought, how much do I love my dog? A lot, of course. I was going to give it a shot. It's never a question. But it did cross my mind that a neighbor of mine's dog had been bitten by a rattlesnake, and they had chosen not to give it the antidote, and the dog had lived. So I said, as I was weighing my pocketbook issues, well, I think I'd like to have the vet take a look at her and see what the vet says. And she said, oh, of course. And she called the vet. My dog by now has realized that we are in the vet's office. So this really brave dog who can jump over rattlesnakes and run around and chase things down, now has her tail between her legs and is yanking like, we have to go. I thought that was a very good sign. We have to go. I agreed with her. We should go. But first we need an exam. And the vet opens the door, looks in and says, there's no use my examining her because if she were bitten, it would be in the face, and you would not have any mistake about this dog having a rattlesnake bite, which I thought was very good news. So we raced out of the two of us, hit the road as fast as we could possibly do. And my panic was allayed for the time being. Her eyes were clear, and she was her curious self. And yes, I would let her run again. off leash in the preserve because I felt that her physical and mental health depended more on her being able to exercise than the possible risk that she would run into a rattlesnake. Well, by the way, she was now on to rattlesnakes because, in fact, we did find another one a few years later, and she just stepped right around it. She knew this time. She went, step around it, which was great. And she lived another 9 years, and I still miss her.